Music bed.
All right, here we are. Another Monday message. I hope everyone had an incredible holiday break, especially Thanksgiving. I hope everyone was able to enjoy their family and be around some good food. But here we are, another Monday message. We have a special one in store today. We have a guest speaker, Brandon Manley, who actually came in during boot camp. I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago and killed it. And I'm super excited. I know Steven's super excited. We're all super excited to have him here for our Monday message. And the topic today is going to be, the 4 reasons why agents succeed and or fail in this business, which is going to be so important. Brandon, I'm super excited. Can you hear me clearly? Are you
Yes,
there?
sir. I can hear you loud and clear.
All right. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How about you?
It's going good, man. It's going good, man. I enjoyed my break. I'm excited to kind of hear what you gotta say to us and whatnot, and inspire us on this Monday. So I'm gonna pass everything off to you and sit back and listen.
All right, cool. Well, it was good to meet you the other day. Nice to put a face to the name. So, and Davey's office, that's certainly impressive. So, I enjoyed getting around the team there and meeting, and even having somebody like Davey's allowing someone outside of his organization to bring folks in was incredible, because the training that Davey's provides, in my opinion, is second to none. I've told people in my organization that I think Davies is the best trainer I've ever heard and got to listen to in our company by far. And I think if I've only been with the Alliance, so I can only really account for the Alliance, but I gotta say, if he went toe to toe with any other organization out there, I would still put him up there at the top. And so you guys are learning from the best, right? And I fanboy over Davies sometime, because I look at what he does, and he's been through it, right? I respect the crap out of somebody who's been through the trenches and always coming out on top, and just to see him fight, the fight that he has is awesome. So it's very very honorable that I get to come on this call and talk to you guys. I know I was joking. I volunteered Davies to be my mentor, because I'm speaking at NatCon. And but I really value what he says to me. And so I did this talk when I was at his office a couple weeks ago, and applaud you guys that got there to that meeting. I know there were several people that came from out of state to attend that meeting. It was a $50 meeting. I'm telling you, Davies, I would have talked people into paying $1,000 to come to that meeting. So if you want to up it next time, go for it, brother. But it was incredible. $50 to go there, get that training. He provided us with an awesome lunch. It was just incredible. And I asked some of my folks that went, I said, hey, was I overhyping it? Was I overhyping the training? And they said, absolutely not. It was awesome. And so next time that we get together and we do that meeting, I intend on having many more people there. So anyway, I've been with the company for now 3 years. I started in November of 2019. So literally 3 years on the dot this month. And I've analyzed some of what we do, right? And how we operate. And I've certainly, like many of you guys, had people that have come in and killed it. I've had people that come in and haven't killed it, and now they're at a full-time job again, or whatever the case may be. And so I've really tried to put my finger on, okay, what is it that is causing people to fail or succeed in this business? And there's a multitude of things that can lead to somebody failing in this business. Maybe it's a timing thing, right? Like a lot of this business, in my opinion, is timing, because you get somebody in and maybe they don't work out now, but I've seen it happen before. They come back later and they absolutely kill this thing. So don't be upset when you're hiring, if you have somebody that doesn't work out right away. Stay in touch with that person, keep constant communication. But getting back to my point is I've narrowed it down to really what I think are the top 4 things in this business that either cause somebody to fail or succeed. And again, these are not all of them. I think training's a big piece of that. Training is something that I've worked very hard on. I know Davies has worked very hard on training, but I wanted a place like, so when I come into the Alliance, and I don't say this very often, but when I came into the Alliance, Andy has an incredible corporate staff, but I was direct to Andy, right? So Andy, he hasn't been in the field for a while. And so I didn't have a direct upline to call. I had Andy, I had his staff to call, but again, those folks were not out there running appointments like somebody like you have access to with Davies or Hutchinson on the team. There's some incredible people on you guys' team. Soto, Beal, the lineup is incredible that you guys have to work with, and I'm leaving some out, so please forgive me. But it was really one of those things where it was like, go out there and figure it out. I remember I hired y'all, most of y'all probably know Cousin Vinny. I remember I hired him right away. Before I started here full time, I hired Vinny. And so it's just funny to think back on the conversations we had, how frustrating it was at that time to reach out to each other looking for the answers. And we both had no idea what the answer was. But we fumbled through it and we got through it. So I think training is a big piece of that. But if you ask me why most people fail, I'm going to break it down into 4 categories. And I want to expand on each one of those categories for you guys. And the thing is everything that I talk about, it really doesn't have to do with your skill set as much as it does your attentiveness, your discipline, if you will. And I think that's something that we all have in us, and it doesn't have to be a skill set thing, but let's go over those. So Chandler or Adam, can you all help me? I want to share my other screen. Am I a host on this one as well? I want to share.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay. So let's go ahead and break this down for you guys. Whiteboard. Okay. So y'all are seeing, okay, we're all seeing it. Okay, whiteboard. All right. So I've broken this down into 4 categories, and I'm going to go over each one of these, but I want to go ahead and give you them in advance. And before I give them to you, I want you to know that I think all of these, I do have them in a specific order, but I think, like, if you were asking me, are these in order of importance? No, they're all important. But it's kind of the flow with it, if you will. So the first thing that I think we have happen, let me change my color, black. Okay. So the first one that we have is going to be schedule. I have no idea why it's doing it like that. Okay, so schedule, right? So let's talk about schedule real quick. No, I told you I'll give you all 4 first. So let me do that. All right. 2 is going to be your investments. Apologize about the font. I'm not sure why it's lagging like that. And this is not just your money. It's certainly money, but it's also your time, right? Like, for example, you guys are here today on this call. That matters. That's an investment of your time. The third thing is going to be none other than activity. And the 4th thing is mindset, right? And I want to spend time talking about each one of these. I do want to make a quick comment on mindset. I think mindset is a very important thing because it can make I think mindset is 90% of this business, and I think it can make or break you, right? Everybody has someone, or maybe it's yourself, that they really ride the high waves and they really ride the low waves, right? I talked about this at the training. I have one of my top producers that had a rough month in September. And now he works 2 days a week with me. He'll make around $150,000, $160,000. I'm probably giving him away by saying that. But, he was telling me that he was thinking about leaving, and he was thinking about going and getting a full-time job because he was having a rough month. Mind you, he will make $150,000 to $160,000 this year, working 2 days a week. And he's telling me he's going to go look for another job. So we had some conversations, as you can imagine, and we got it all straightened out. This month, he's already paid $20,000 this month. So it's one of those things. This is a constant reminder of the highs and lows, right? That they're going to happen, and it does hurt. When you've been out there and you've experienced the ups and downs, the downs hurt, but there's ways to get around that, right? So let's break down each one of these individually here. And I want to start with schedule. and I'm going to delete this. So I hope you guys wrote this down or took a mental note of it, preferably written it down, because I don't think mental notes work. But schedule. Let's talk about schedule real quick. So schedule is a very important thing in this business. As a matter of fact, it's important in all of life. I mean, we go through our entire life. Our whole life is scheduled. When you first start school, when you go to school, you have a schedule, right? You're there from 8 o'clock to 2 p.m. or 3 p.m., whatever it was. When you go to college, you have a schedule. You don't just say, hey, I think I'm going to go to class today. You have a schedule. When you're playing sports as a kid, you have a schedule. Like we have practice on Tuesday and Thursday at 7 to 9 o'clock at night. We have a schedule in place. And, I think that this business is really a spectacular business. It's changed my life. And I know it's changed a lot of you guys watching this life. But it's one of those things like there's the being your own boss is a blessing and a curse, in my opinion. So when you have someone, and this is where it kind of becomes funny to me, is when you have somebody that comes into our business and they're getting started. This is a very important conversation that you need to have, because what are they used to? They're used to structure. They're used to a business where they're usually coming from a corporate background. And when I worked at corporate, I knew I had to be at the office at 7:45. No excuses. I had to be there by 7:45. Okay. I knew I couldn't leave until 5 p.m. I had an hour-long lunch break. Most of the time when I was working that job, especially when I was first getting started, I was working from 7:45 in the morning until about 7 o'clock at night, because I was trying to get ahead. I knew that the other guys that I was starting with, they wouldn't be as successful as I was if I put in the time, right? Which we'll get into here in a little while with activity. But I just knew that they wouldn't if they wouldn't sacrifice the time to learn it in the beginning, I would be further ahead of them. And I was right. I passed all them jokers. And so when you transfer that mindset into your own business, here's where the problem lies, is people think now that they're creating their own schedule, that it's okay to make excuses, right? I knew I had to be there at 7:45 in the morning. It didn't matter. It wasn't a matter of, okay, I can run a few minutes late. If something happens with my car, it'd be okay. I'll just, I'll take it somewhere and get to work when I can. No, I had to work around that. If I didn't have a wife at that time, but if I had a wife at that time and she was like, well, you need to take the kids to school before you go to work, I knew I had to work that into my schedule before 7:45 hit. Now, when we come into this business, we're our own boss, right? That's the beauty of it. We love it. We love being our own boss. And but then we start making excuses for ourselves, like, well, I gotta what are you doing this morning? I was supposed to dial, but I needed an oil change. I need to get the tires rotated on my car. My wife needed me to take the dog to the vet. All things that when you had a corporate schedule, you would have figured out, now become a priority in your new schedule. And it's just mind blowing to me. And why I say it's funny is because in my mind, you're respecting someone else's time more than you respect your own. So if I would take that same mindset with my corporate job, if I didn't take it, I would get fired from that job. With this job, I can't get fired. I'm my own boss, right? I can make all the excuses I want. But here's the thing. You will fail in this business if you do not have a schedule, because schedule is going to bring commitment. Schedule equals commitment, right? Schedule equals commitment. Wow, that was bad. All right, commitment. So when you have commitment, guys, and I think I got this from I went to another training in Dallas. And I mean, if this doesn't show you how badly I try to get around you guys' direct leadership to learn things, like if I'm trying harder than you, then there's a problem, right? So I went out to Dallas the last time they did a meeting like the one they just did in Asheville. And I remember something that really stuck with me is what Mark Hutchinson said. He said, commitment brings clarity. And for me, I started thinking about that, and I was like, okay, if I have clarity in what I'm doing, well, now I'm going to be able to create priorities, right? So this all leads to priorities, and priorities goes perfectly in line with schedule when you're talking about it, because what do you need on your schedule? Income producing activities. So what do those look like? Those look like dialing, right? I'm not sitting here trying to tell everyone that you should enjoy dialing. No, but I'm telling you, it's a means to an end, to getting into the house, to being able to sit down with the family, leave them in a better position than you found them, making time to find time to call recruits, right? I love when people are like, we do 3 things in this business: sell, recruit, and build. But if I'm selling, I can't do the other 3. Well, all right, you have time in between your appointments to make calls, right? You're driving down the road. Maybe you have somebody that's dialing for the first time today. Maybe you have someone you just need to catch up to, make sure. Maybe it was a 15-minute interview you had the other day. You're calling back to check in with them. Takes 5-10 minutes in between your appointments. Most time when we're driving to appointments, it's a 20 to 30-minute drive, right? Unless you've really scheduled it out well. And there may be times you can't, right? I have an agent who I think of every time I talk about this, because they tell me they don't have time to recruit, but every time in between their appointments, they call me and they want to speak for about 30 to 45 minutes. And sometimes I'll let them talk 30 to 45 minutes just to prove my point. You could have called 3 people in between the time you called me. We could have called up later this afternoon. None of this was more important than building your business. None of it. This is not income producing activity calling me to tell me about X, Y, and Z. No. So they could have called 2 to 3 people in that time frame, right? So now I'm looking at my schedule and I'm trying to create it. And I'm trying to look at what is going to help build my business. And I've got to create it around income producing activities. And I've got to fit in things that are going to happen throughout my life. So when I'm starting somebody out and we're first getting started, I'm going to have them white sheet their schedule out, right? Because I know that this is going to create clarity. I know that it's going to create priorities, and that they're going to be more successful if they have a schedule. Remember, everything in life that we've done so far up to this point has been scheduled. Now that we're our own boss, it does not change. We need a schedule in place, right? And this is something that I would recommend you doing. I would have it set in stone of, okay, here's what my schedule looks like on a week-to-week basis. But certainly things are going to pop up like Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving just happened on Thursday. Most of you, I assume, did not work on Thursday. I did not. I did not work on Thursday. Took a few calls, but that's about it. So I knew between Monday and Wednesday, right? So on Sunday, I looked at my schedule, and I would recommend you doing this every Sunday. Sunday, I looked at my schedule and I said, all right, what do I need to get done before Thursday? So I worked my tail off on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, so I could take Thursday off. So things that I would have normally done on Thursday, I got done between Monday through Wednesday, and then Friday I picked right back up. Saturday I picked right back up. I'm not trying to sell you on the idea of working 7 days a week. I'm addicted. I love this. I talk to people. It's fun for me. But I do think that if you're really trying to build your business, if you really want to do this, you need to put in 6 to 7 days a week. And if that scares you, I'm sorry to tell you, that's what it's going to take to build your business, because you have this idea, you have this picture in your mind of what you want your business to look like. But what does the activity level look like to reach that? That's what you really need to break down. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but let me talk about schedule, right? So if you're getting a brand new person started with us, I would recommend you do this every time you get someone started. Anytime I get someone started. And now I never delegate to downline, but a lot of my downline has heard this, and they do these things with people. I put things in place to where we have a step-by-step feature of when you're getting started with us, what you should do. And it's something that I tell my folks, yep, you can send it to your new hires, but this is not a replacement for what you need to do. This is a checklist for you, more importantly than it is them. It's for them to have to look at. But I encourage my downline, I call them partners, really. I don't like downline, but I tell my partners, I say, hey, look, this is your time to go through these things. When you have somebody getting started, you should know exactly where they're at in the process. And let's say you can't do it at the time that they're available. Well, now I can step in and I can clearly know what they've done and where they're at. Okay. So when we're getting started, schedule is like after they get contracted. I don't know where it falls exactly. Yes, I do. After they get contracted with the carriers, after they order the new agent kit, it is now time to create their schedule. And so what I do is I get on a Zoom or a phone call with somebody like this, and I make sure that they have a white sheet in front of them, just like what I'm about to show you guys. When they have a white sheet, I tell them, I want you to write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'll share my screen, whatever I got it. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right? We're going to draw this out. All right. So if we're getting started and this is a brand new person and they plan on working full time with us, here's what I tell them. I can guarantee you this. If you do 20 sits a week, I can guarantee you 20,000 issue paid business a month. And notice, I am not telling them 20 appointments a week will get them 20 issue paid. I said 20 sits a week will get them 20K issue paid. I don't care how bad they are. If they put in this type of effort, this type of activity, they will get somewhere. So I'm going to show them what a full-time schedule looks like. And I'm going to break this down. I have a whole video that actually breaks this down for them. And I have them watch that video too before we do this, just to go ahead and give them some insight. And so I don't have to go over as much. And the more of it's at knowledge, right? But I still want to go over this. So when you have a brand new person, let's say they're starting out full-time, here's what I tell them. All right, so at 8 o'clock on Monday morning, you start dialing. This is your dial day. All of the top performers do this. Do you want to be a top performer or not? This is what all the top performers do. I'm sitting in the Treasure Island office. I've got probably the top 5 in here. I've got Stephanie Rodriguez, Brian Rojas, Michelle Cullen, Mike Hartley, a bunch of people. And I can promise you this office right now, Michelle's right here next to me. She's probably listening into it. She's dialing, right? Brian Rojas is dialing. Stephanie Rodriguez dialing. This is what they do on Monday. Here's the thing is they don't have a specific time frame of when they're dialing. They're dialing to get their appointment set, right? So sometimes it might take you till 8 o'clock at night to get your appointment set, right? So here's what I'm doing. I'm going for 6 to 8 appointments booked on Tuesday, 6 to 8 appointments booked on Wednesday, right? On Thursday, they're dialing again. And notice when I'm talking to them, right? And again, 8 a.m., I'm telling them things like, hey, at 8 a.m., that's when you start pushing the green button. This is not the time to grab your coffee. It's not the time to print your leads. It's not the time to take a restroom break. All of those things should be done before then. On Sunday night, you should print off your leads. You should have a stack on your desk ready to go. You should have your coffee prepped by 7:45. At 8 o'clock, I don't care what you do before 8 o'clock, but at 8 o'clock, that should be the time that you're pushing that green button for the first time and ringing, right? And you're dialing. Your expectation should be 35 to 40 dials per hour. And so a lot of the times people are telling their new hires, hey, like you need to make about X amount of dials, or you need to dial from this time to this time. I don't care what time they dial till. I just want them to hit their 6 to 8 appointments. I want them to have between 12 and 16 appointments over the next 2 days, right? And I want them to do the same thing on Thursday. I want them to dial until they need to. I love telling the story of Jeff Schultz. Jeff Schultz is somebody on my team. He sits here too. He's dialing as we speak. And so Jeff Schultz, when he first started with me, he was gung-ho on 40 appointments a week. Now, notice, when I did this with Jeff, he's telling me he wants to run 40 appointments a week. And I'm not. This is a minimum thing. 12 to 16 minimum appointments over those next 2 days. Minimum. Okay, so that's what I'm telling my folks. And Jeff was dead set on having 20 appointments between Tuesday and Wednesday. And so I was obviously encouraging that. But the things that Jeff did to get to that a lot of people would not do. So Jeff Schultz, his old schedule was he would dial from 8 to 12 o'clock on Monday morning. He would go and get lunch at about 12:30, and then he would hit the road. He would go and door knock from 1 to 4 p.m. And then he would come back and he would dial, or he would eat some dinner, at 4:30, start dialing again at 5 p.m. on the dot. He would dial until he had his 20 appointments booked. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes Jeff went from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. But what he did was he gave himself a chance to get better very quickly. And so now, Jeff, I would imagine it's 124 where we're at. I would imagine he's got all of his appointments booked up for Tuesday and Wednesday because he's put in that time and effort. Now it takes him from about 8 to 12 to book those 20 appointments. But at first, he was so gung-ho on getting those 20 appointments over the next 2 days that he did whatever it took. He did however long it took. Michelle Cullen is a great example. One of the people on my team, I put in the car with Michelle, and Michelle was looking at her activity book and said, you have one appointment this day. And she goes, yeah, what do you do when you only have one appointment? She goes, what do you mean? I don't ever just have one appointment. Like, I keep dialing till I have the amount of appointments that I set up for. So the schedule, I'm taking a long route of telling you, like, it doesn't matter how long on Monday you dial, right? You're just trying to set up 6 to 8 appointments between the next 2 days. So I'm going to start my first at 8, right? And you want to schedule this out with people, right? 8 o'clock. I want to do my next one at, let's say they're brand new. I'm going to give them an hour and a half, 9:30, 11, 12:30, 1, 2, and so on and so forth. Same thing for these days, right? So I'm having them actually plan out their calendar, right? At 2 p.m., they've got to input. We got our AMG team call. You guys at 1 p.m., you need to put in your team calls. On Wednesday, they know they got the TWC. Thursday, they got the product call. On Friday, they have the activity call. These are important calls to be on, right? We don't just have these for fun. This is good information. Like these calls are super beneficial. Like, I hope you guys are looking at this 1 o'clock call as beneficial to me, right? So all of these calls have a purpose. You got to work them into your schedule. And so now I know 8 o'clock, 9:30, right? 11. Now it's time to take a break for TWC, get started back at 1:30. 3 o'clock. So your schedule looks a little different, but we got to teach these new people to work this into their schedule. So Friday, Saturday, it looks like the same thing. I'm booking 6 to 8 appointments, 6 to 8. And then Saturday is my rest day. Rest day. And this would be a day that I take advantage of. I would use it to catch up with agents. I would use it to print out my leads. I would print it to get myself ready for the week. If I'm creating a new schedule, I'll sit down and create my schedule every Sunday. But this is something that you've got to go over with your new folks, right? If they're working part-time, well, I had a gentleman recently tell me that he works from 8 to 3 p.m. during the week, every day during the week. I've got to work around that. So now his schedule doesn't look like this. This is a full-time schedule, right? So I've got to work around his schedule and I've got to fit it in. Maybe he's not going to be getting 6 to 8 appointments over those next 2 days. I've got to fit in as many as we can. On Saturday and Sunday, he's wide open. So we're gearing up for those days. But during the week, can he do something? Certainly. He's got from 3 to 9 o'clock every day during the week to build his business, to set up appointments. So now if I get him dialing from 3 to 9 on Monday, he can set up Tuesday and Wednesday, let's say 3 o'clock. Let's give him till 4 to get home. He's got from 4 to 9 to run appointments. That's 5 appointments a day. That's 10 appointments that he could run over Tuesday and Wednesday. There's no excuses if you have a schedule broken down. Now, here's the other thing that I'll tell you about a schedule. Schedule is very important to go over, not with just your upline. Here's what if I was sitting down with you, if I'm sitting down with Stephen Davies and we're going over his schedule, I'm going to say, hey, Stephen, all right, cool. Does this look good to you? Okay, perfect. All right, this looks like the most efficient, most effective schedule we can put in place for you. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to go and talk with Chandler. I need you to go and talk with Holly, and I need you to tell them about this schedule. And what am I doing there? I'm telling him to talk to his loved ones, right? I want him to tell them this is what he's going to be doing for the foreseeable future until he gets his business up and running, right? We may make some adjustments here. We may not. We may be going with this for a year. But I need his wife and kids on board. So I need, when he's talking to Holly, I need him to tell Holly that, hey, I'm starting dialing at 8 o'clock. I can't be interrupted. Now that prevents the excuses coming. Well, Holly wants me to take the kids to school. We talked about this. You already talked with Holly. Holly said, go for this, do the schedule. Here's the other thing is significant others can be a deadly resource to you as their upline because they can hold them more accountable. I've literally had our significant others call me and tell me that their significant other is not doing what they committed to doing. I swear to God, I've had them call me and say, hey, look, here's what's really going on, right? Like, it sounds crazy, but now they're helping me hold them accountable, right? Because nothing I'm going to put in place is to I'm not trying to create a factory over here. I'm trying to put them in a better position based on what they told me, what they want. I'm trying to create them. I call it a success schedule. I'm trying to create them a success schedule. So the gentleman that I was talking about that works from 3 to 9, he asked me an important question. What do I do about my daughters? I'm a single father of 2. Great question. Well, I want you to go over this with them. But I said, you need to create some time. We need to have a day every week, preferably a dial day. Maybe it's every dial day. Maybe it's Monday and Thursday, where you set up a daddy-daughter date and you go out, you take your daughter out from 7 to 8 o'clock. Y'all go out to dinner, go do whatever, right? I saw him on Facebook. He went and rode scooters with her the other day. They went downtown Indianapolis and rode scooters. That is something that I want to fit into their life, but they've got to have a commitment. They got to have a schedule to follow, or they're never going to commit. They're never going to commit, and they're never going to be successful in this business, because all of a sudden, when you don't have a schedule, everything outside externally starts to take focus. There's a whole book that Andy wrote on it, The Circle of You, what you can control. Your schedule is 100% something you can control. So why would you not stick to a schedule, especially when you do it for someone else, when you're helping build their business, right? So I encourage you to when you're getting someone started, or if you have not sat down and white sheeted a schedule, I would encourage you to get with the person who brought you into this business and say, hey, here's what I'm looking at doing. If that person's no longer here, talk to Stephen Davies about it. I talk to somebody successful in your organization that can help you out up in your upline, right? Say, hey, look, I want to put together a schedule. I haven't put one together yet. I'm kind of flying by my seat and this isn't working. Right? I'm not doing as well as I thought I would. And I think this is a big portion of or a piece from the puzzle that's missing. And sit down and white sheet it with them. Go over it with your loved ones, right? And be accountable to yourself like you were for that other guy helping build his business. It's so frustrating to me to think about that. That's what drove me crazy about corporate world is like, yeah, I'm working here. They're paying me a great salary to do it, but I'm still building his future. I'm not building my own. And Andy had told me about this before. I just wasn't open to listening, right? So it goes back to what we were talking about. It was the timing thing for me. All right. Does that make sense? Hopefully you guys understand. This is something you should be going over with everyone coming into your business. If you don't, they're not going to be following a schedule. And I promise you, I'd say this one is the biggest reason why people don't succeed. It's the biggest one, in my opinion. All right, let's move on. If there is questions coming in the YouTube channel thing, will y'all let me know? Because I can't. I've got too many different screens pulled up. All right, let's talk about investments. All right, this is another one. All right, and I told y'all from the get-go, I'm not only talking about leads. I'm not only talking about investing in your business, whether it's travel, the recruiting ads, whatever. I'm talking about your time, right? So one of the things that we talk about is mindset here in a few minutes. And mindset, this kind of goes right into that. Like, what are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you investing your time in? Are you prioritizing things that are making you better, right? Like Friday night, I tell everybody this, when I did this part-time and I was working that full-time job, I'd get out the office about 3 or 4. They let us leave because we hit our metrics. And so I had the option of going home and dialing because I only ran on Saturday and Sunday. Or I knew there was an office about an hour away from me in Burlington, North Carolina, where I could go and dial. And I was still living with my college roommates at that time. So I knew I needed to get my butt in that car and drive up there, or I wouldn't make dials. I would go out, right? So I would not, if I would have put myself in a position to not invest my time and gas to go up there to Burlington, I knew I wouldn't prioritize myself to be better. I would prioritize other things like going out and grabbing beers with my friends, grabbing wings, whatever, right? So, are you prioritizing things that are making you better with your investments, right? Like this call, jumping on this call, taking a break from your dial session to listen in to something that may transform your business. Have you committed to training or the convention yet? Have you committed to investing your time and your money into going to Dallas, North Carolina, January 12th through the 15th to learn, to get around, to associate, right? I could do a whole call on why you should go to convention. I don't have time for that right now, but it's more about the training, the association you get, the meeting the carriers, right? Meeting the carrier. Like I have a carrier on my team call today. Why? Because I want people to be able to utilize him like I do as a resource. I want them to be able to reach out. If they come to convention, now they get that one-on-one time face to face with them. Maybe they take them for a drink. Maybe they take them to dinner with them. They build an instant relationship with him. That association piece is huge. Are you coming to the trainings that Davies is providing? Right? That's an investment. I know there was Rogers and another gentleman. I cannot remember your name. I'm so sorry. I want to say it was Bryant or something like that. But Rogers was there, and Rogers doesn't live close to Asheville, North Carolina. Right? He flew in. Sabrina Floyd was there. There was a bunch of people there. And, coming and making that commitment, I had people driving 3-4 hours away to come to Davies training, because I sold them on why that was a good investment of their time and of that cheap $50 ticket to get in. Right. So are you prioritizing those things? That's a big thing when you're talking about investments, because I'm not just talking about leads. I'm talking about your time and your money. Now, when we do talk about the money side, I do want to talk about the investments of leads, because leads are absolutely the lifeline of this business. And I don't care how many people tell me that they can build this business off of their warm market. No, you cannot. You cannot build this off of just your warm market. You will run out of warm market. Sure, that can be a supplement to your business, but it should not be your main focus. And this is another reason why people really fail in this business, is because, or they succeed, they invest, right? If you're talking to any of the top producers, they're investing more money than the people who are doing less production. And it's the absolute lifeline of this business. And I always think it's a good example to use. I got a buddy who's in the glass business. Him and his dad are in the glass business. They net $400K a year, right? That's what they net. All right. Now, the crazy thing is we have folks in this business netting 400K plus a year. And so I just decided to ask them, hey, okay, what does your business, what's your cost of business look like? And he said, I think it was like $1,350 a week. $1,350 a week. Right. And at first he didn't tell me a week. He said $1,350. I said, oh, a month. Okay. He goes, no, a week. I go, so you're spending $1,350 a week to net 400K. And he said, yeah, this is the cost of materials, like labor and any other overhead costs that's associated with that, just to net 400,000. But here's the thing. And 400,000 is not a bad living, right? That's great. Him and his dad are doing really well. And I'm happy for him. But the crazy thing in my mind is you have someone that's spending $1,350 a week in cost of business to accumulate $400,000 a year, right? And when you look at our business model, you can take this same approach to it, right? If you're investing $1,350 a week into your business, right? Oh, I'm sorry. And I have to back up real quick. I'm so sorry. This is, I was just doing, this is a day. That's a day, 1,350 a day, right? But I look at it like this, is if you invested $1,350 into your business a week, not a day, a week, how much would you yield? And if your answer is any less than 400,000, you're crazy. It would be way more than $400,000. You look at Megan Wood, she's probably spends the most amount of money on leads a week. And she does she'll make $800,000, $900,000 this year. I think she spends $1,200 to $1,300 a week in leads. So this guy's spending, him and his dad are spending $1,350 a week, or I'm sorry, a day. And so what would that come out to? 1,350 times 5. Let's just call it like $7,000. He's spending $7,000 a week to net 400K. Megan Wood will net 800,000, spending $1,200 a week this year. It's just, there's no other business that I think you can do this model in. So let's look at it a little bit further here. But I do like to start with an example to show you, like, there is a cost of business in any business that you go in. So if you're looking at this business and you're like, I don't want to invest in leads. Why? Why would you not? It's your cost of business. If you can take $100 worth of leads and turn it into 500, your question should be, how many times can I do that? Not, I don't want to invest $100. Right. So let's take a further look at at what your investment should look like when it comes to leads. All right, so if you're spending, let's say you start out with $250. Now, some people will say, well, I can't start out with $250. I beg to differ. I think you could start out with $250 if you really put your mind to it and figured out a way to come up with $250 to invest in leads. Because we have this thing called Uber now, we have Uber Eats. We have a bunch of ways that you can make money. You could borrow the money, which you will be able to pay back if you work the system correctly. And it's amazing to me what people will come up with money for and what they will say they can't come up with the money. If you can't come up with $250 to invest in your business to build a future for yourself, but you can go spend $500 on the new Xbox when it comes out or the new pair of Jordans that you wanted, you can spend $250. You can come up with $250. So it's a very lame excuse to say, I don't know where to find the $250. Well, you found it for those Jordans the other day, right? So, but let's just say that you're starting out with $250. This is my initial cost of investment. If you have an upline that wants to, here's the thing when it comes to investing in your downline, it doesn't work. It's one of those things. Everyone says they're different. They won't treat these leads like they were given to them. In the end, it's always as if they were given to them. So the only thing that I would do if I were you, from an upline perspective, the only thing I would do is a match. I would only match the amount of money that they're willing to put in. So if they're willing to put in $250 and I'm their upline, and I want to help them out and give them an extra $250, I may match. I'm not saying this is not across the board. This is not something that we have in our system. Like we match every lead order. That's not the case. $250 is a good amount to start with. But I do want to get across that point for you folks out there that are like, hey, I'm just investing in my people. I don't think that's a good idea. I have heard another way of doing it is actually in y'all's hierarchy. Mike Guerra, what he'll do is he'll sell the person a policy because they do need a policy on themselves. He'll take that commissions and invest that into their lead source. I think that's okay, but just giving them leads, bad idea. Bad idea. All right. So let's say $250 of an investment should yield you $2,500 in issue paid premium, right? So for every $100 in leads we spend, $1,000 AP. And some people are like, well, I don't know that that's the case. It might not yield me 1,000 AP. Well, if you're working the leads, I promise you it'll yield you 1,000. And I would argue that it would actually yield you more than 1,000 if you work them the right way, which we'll go over here in a second. But if you have somebody that takes $100 and they invest in leads, they should do $1,000 in annualized premium, right? So if we're doing $250, the same thing applies. It's a 10% rule. So if they're applying $250, it should yield them $2,500. Now, let's say that they go out in their first week and they do $2,500. Now, what do most people do? Let's say they net $1,250 of that, right? They got $1,250 deposited into their bank account. Well, most people, what they'll do is they'll go back and they'll go pay off bills, right? So they made this 1 week. The next week, now they got money to pay off. They got money to give their kids, their grandma. They spend this money on things that they shouldn't, right? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay your bills. I'm saying, though, if you have till the end of the month to pay your bill, why would you take that money that you just made and automatically pay it off? Now you're back to square one. Now you're trying to come up with another $250. So what I would encourage you to do is take this $1,250 and up your ante. If you know you can turn $250 into $2,500, why not go for $500 now? Let's go for $500, and let's turn that $500 into $5,000 annualized premium. Now you got $2,500, right? And maybe you're comfortable with that $500 budget. Maybe that's what your goal is to hit 5,000 AP a week. Maybe that's your goal. Okay, well, now you take that and invest it back in. So now you invest 500, you net 2,000, and guess what you just did? You just created seed money. Because if you take that same $500 every week and invest it in leads and turn it into 2,500, now you got 2,000 in the bank. You got 500 where you'll never have to figure out where your lead money's coming from. Now you've got it sitting there. So now you've invested properly into your business, right? And maybe you do decide to go up to 1,000, turn that into 10,000 a week, right? You net 6,000, let's just say, keep it on the low end. You net 6,000. Now you got 1,000 to go put back towards leads. You net 5,000. Now you've got $1,000 seed of lead money. You never have to worry about lead cost again. Your cost of business on that side are done until you decide to start putting more money towards it. Now, remember, I promise you, I wanted to talk about this. $100,000 annualized premium. So if you're sitting there and you're working leads the correct way, and you're reinvesting, there is no reason that your $100 should only be worth 10x on the annual premium side. And here's why I argue that. If you're doing the 4 basics in a home, I say sell or sell. Just pick up your cell phone or pick up the check, right? That's the other way of putting it. 2 is going to be safe money. If you're finding safe money in houses and you're only getting a 10% return, you're doing something wrong. All right. Safe money, referrals. And 4 is recruiting. Some people laugh at the recruiting one, and I used to too. But then you start hearing people's story, like a Megan Wood who came from a lead. You start hearing about Stephanie Rodriguez who came from a lead, right? You're sitting there talking with these folks who are 70 years old, telling you all about their grandkids. He just lost his job over at UPS. Easy chance to recruit, right? There's a lot of recruiting opportunity when it comes to a house, but outside of recruiting, right? Recruiting is kind of you're planting seeds when you're recruiting, and it doesn't hurt to do so. But when you're sitting there and you're helping somebody out with a final expense plan, I just had a buddy out in Montana helped out somebody with a final expense final expense policy, and then uncovered that she had inherited $5 million and it was losing money. Moved $1 million of that over into an annuity, $1.5 million of that over into annuity, made $75,000 right away. $75,000 right away. Sold her a final expense policy, probably made $1,000+ from that. Then turns around and makes $75,000 from one annuity. Moved the rest of the money under management with Chris Norris. Now, what do you think is going to happen with that money? Over time, they're going to put more of that money out and move it into annuities. All right, and then referrals. This one's huge. Like referrals, referrals are the hottest leads. Okay, referrals are the cheapest leads as well. They don't cost you any money. And Brian Rojas does an incredible talk on how to get 15 people out of ERS. I've heard so many people talk about that and say how it transformed them being able to get referrals. And so when it comes to referrals, like if I'm sitting here and I'm selling something to Stephen Davies, or let's say I'm selling it to Chandler. I'm selling it to Chandler. I sell him a term policy and I say, hey, do you know anybody else who might be able to use my services? And he goes, yeah, my dad and my mom don't have anything. Well, now when I go to his mom and dad, don't you think I have more trust with them? I just help their son out with something, or vice versa. Or if it's one of Chandler's friends, let's say it's Adam, and Adam's never heard of me, never heard of insurance, but Chandler tells him, hey, you should talk to Brandon. Who do you think has more? And again, there's a great process that I'm not going into detail with on how to work these referrals more effectively, but you've got to be asking these questions. Now, the thing about it is when it comes to safe, if I come across somebody who's not getting any safe money or referrals or recruiting out of the house, take away picking up the check or picking up the phone, right? If they're not picking up the phone, you know. But if they're not finding safe money, or they're not finding referrals, or they're not recruiting anyone out the house, it really boils down to one thing. They're not asking. They're not asking any of those questions to get those. And maybe we haven't done a good enough job on selling them on why they should look for safe money or why they should get referrals, right? I'll take the blame for it. I haven't done a good enough job selling you on why to do this. So let me explain it to you. The next time you go in a house, this is what I expect from you. And here's why. Because it's just so simple to do, right? So if you're getting referrals, let's say you get 15 referrals off each lead like Brian Rojas does. Well, let's say you go to 10 people a day, that's 150 new people to contact. That didn't cost you anything. So if you're saying $100 worth of leads only yields you 1,000, I would agree with you. You're incorrect, because it should be more than 1,000 annualized premium, right? So I could keep going on. And the investment part I'm pretty passionate about, because I see what it does. Like I see how many people take this $1,250 and go spend it on irrelevant stuff that's not helping them move the needle. Right? When they could create themselves up for a success. Like I just had a new person start with me, goes out his first month or his first week, does 3,400 in AP. The next week he's in Vegas. I'm like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Not what is this guy thinking? What did I do wrong? Right? Why, how much of that money that he made did he go spend in Vegas, or did he lose in Vegas? Right. So now he's taking the money that he made with us and he's putting it on a bet on a table where mostly people lose money at. Right. Versus with us, if you invest that money back into your business, I can guarantee you wins. So again, it is what it is. But this is stuff that we have to be talking about with people. It's not, don't assume it's just common sense that they're going to take 1250 and up the ante and put in 500, right? They may say, well, I've got more leads in this stack that I need to work anyway. Well, true, but we need to get you some momentum going. We need to get you multiple leads coming in, because I don't want you sitting stagnant, twiddling your thumbs when you do run out of those leads. I'd get them on a GMR as soon as possible. That's how you create that momentum. Let's talk about momentum. All right. Third piece of this puzzle is activity. All right. Activity. So this one's pretty self-explanatory, and it goes hand in hand with schedule, because if you're setting up their schedule the right way, the activity piece should really kind of fall into place for you. But this is the third thing that I believe that either makes or breaks somebody. Like I talk about the Jeff Schultz story. I mean, if you look at the top producers, like what Michelle Cullen said to my agent, I was in the car with her. I don't just have one appointment. I set myself up to have more activity than that, right? You'll find a common trend, and it's not a skill set thing most of the time, right? The crazy thing is they do get more skillful with more activity. It's like shooting a basketball. If I go and if I'm trying to get better at free throws and I shoot 10 free throws a day, and my buddy's trying to get better at free throws and he shoots 100, who's going to get better? My buddy, all day, right? Or if I'm trying to go if I want to look like The Rock, right? And I'm trying to become like jacked or Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they go to the gym 6 or 7 times a week, and I'm going 1 or 2 and expecting the same results, you would call me insane. And it's the same thing with this business, is how do you expect to get good, right? So one of the talks that, again, I heard from Davies, is the expectation talk, the activity versus the income. And you know, Mark Hutchinson, top producer, he talks about the conversation that he had with Mark Hutchinson when Mark wasn't doing as well as he wanted to do. He was going to go back and get his, your Zoom account is being signed in. Allow. Sure. I don't know. Am I still here? Can y'all still hear me?
Yeah,
We still got you.
Okay. All right. Sorry. My Zoom popped up and said somebody else was logging in. All right. So it's the same thing with this business,
good.
right? So if I'm Mark Hutchinson, and when I came to Davies' office, I am thanking Davies for having this talk with me, because what he did is he said, hey, bro, look, Davies, or look, Hutch, you have 2 different expectations. I'm going to try to do this on the screen. Your expectation of income's up here. Your expectation of activities down here. So we need to do one of 2 things. We need to decrease your expectation on income, or we need to increase your level of activity. And the rest is history. He increased his activity. Now he's at the income that he's wanting, right? So that expectation is what we really need to understand. And it's going to take massive activity at first when you're first getting started with us. You know, the Jeff Schultz story, I won't go over it again, but he had his mindset when he was getting started with us was, I'm going to do whatever it takes to hit my goals, right? And so what he did is he created consistency around his schedule, right? He created momentum. Momentum's so important, because here's the thing. When we get into mindset, I'll talk about this, but consistency, your momentum, is what keeps you riding that thin line, that just even keel line. Because what you did last week does not matter. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't care if you had your best month last week or best week last week, or if you had your worst week. It doesn't matter. All that matters is right now, what you're going to do from this point moving forward. And if there's no consistency behind that, you're never going to create momentum, and you're always going to feel like you're trying to pull yourself out of a rut. I got another example is an agent of mine that was so fired up because she had her best week ever. She had 20 appointments. She set on 20 appointments, and she was very fired up about that. And I was very fired up about it with her too. The problem became the next week, she didn't do 20 appointments, right? So she hit a goal and was okay with not, her goals right here. She hit it finally. The next week, now she's riding that high from last week. Now she bumps back down to here. She loses her momentum, right? Because she's not consistent with it. So you've got to keep consistent activity coming in, right? So what does that look like? It looks like that schedule we showed you. If you're running 6 to 8 appointments a day, and you're running 4 days a week, that's 24 to 32 appointments a week. Now, if you do that this week, that's great, but are you going to do it next week? That's all that matters. You can't get better at things without consistency. And your first 80 to 100 appointments with us, I promise you're still going to feel like a rookie. I've tried doing this, like thinking, trying doing some case studies and seeing how long does it actually take a person to get up and running. There's no clear-cut answer. Some people take longer than others, right? But anywhere between a month to 3 months, maybe 6 months, depending on how hard they're working, you're gonna still feel like a rookie in this business, and that's okay. But I can promise you one thing: the more activity that you put in, the better you get quicker. Like there's no secret to how Jeff Schultz got better in this business. It wasn't a talent thing. He'll sit right here and tell you this. It was not a talent thing. It wasn't hey, I got better because I'm just good at talking to people. No, that's not the case. He just worked harder than most people when he first started. He put in the time, he put in the effort. He ran 80 appointments a week, 40 appointments a week, 160 a month. So of course he's getting better than that person that's running 1 to 2 appointments a day. There's no consistency around that. There's no momentum. You've got to get that rocking with the activity portion, right? I don't want to harp on this too much because it goes right in line with the schedule, but your activity and investments, because you can't have the activity level that you want without investing in leads, right? Again, I'm not saying don't work your warm market. Work your warm market. Work it like your life depends on it, right? Call those 10. Do 10 appointments on people that you know before you get started on leads, but do it quickly, right? Invest in your business. Have the activity that you need. Okay. All right. Moving on. Let's talk about the last portion of this, which is mindset. So, mindset, I said this at the beginning, and I'm going to say it again because I think it's that important. Mindset is 90% or more of this business. It really, really, really is. Okay. So my advice to you when it comes to mindset, and when you're looking for people, find someone who is willing to take a punch. Okay. Because this business is not like everything that we say about it. It sounds so glamorous and sounds amazing, and it is. But believe me, there's some punches along the ways, right? And so you can't get too high or get too low in this business, right? You have ups and downs, right? Week 1, you might be up here. Week 2, you're down here. Week 3, you're down here. And week 4, you quit, right? If you don't have a level mindset, right, in this business, you will eventually quit. I don't care who you are. I mean, I just gave you the example of the gentleman on my team that said he had a bad month and he was thinking about going and getting a full-time job. Mind you, he'll make $160,000 this year working 2 days a week. How do you do that, right? It's mindset. Your mind it will do some insane things, right? Like if you don't have this, we talk about this even. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. Stay right here. Stay right there. So when you go out and you have, like my buddy who went out and did 3,400 in a week, you guarantee he was up here. He was up here somewhere. Then he went to Vegas, came back 2 weeks later. His momentum's down here. Now he's down in the dumps. Now he's starting from scratch, right? So things will add up to mindset, right? Like your activity will fix a lot of your mindset stuff. I remember, one of the things that I'll tell you, I remember when my dad passed away in January 2020. There was a 2-week period where I went dark. This was me. You could have told me that my business was getting taken out from under me, and I would have been like, all right, cool, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. But here's what I did is I went back to work after that 2 weeks. I knew I was just moping around. My mom was like, hey, you need to figure out some stuff. And so all I did was I went back to work, and I went and traveled for like 3 weeks in a row. And the next thing I knew was not that I forgot my dad. It just took my mind off of my downs. Took my minds off my downs because I knew I was out there working. I didn't have time to think about, I didn't have time to feel bad for myself. I didn't have time to sit there and sulk in the loss of my dad. I was working. right? So activity will fix a lot of your mindset. But the crazy thing is we want to stay down here in the lows when we're down in the lows. It's weird. I know it doesn't sound right, but it is. It's true. Think about it. Think about when you've been in a time where you're just going through a rough time. You wanted to stay down there. Do you know why? Because it was easier to stay down there. It's easier to stay down after you've gotten punched than it is to get back up and keep moving. It's a lot easier. And so we make that okay, right? We think it's, we're down here, it feels good. We can stay down there, right? But if we can learn to stay even, right? Talk about this with your people. Hey, that's awesome. You did 3,400 this week. Hey, don't get too high. We got these things in this business called chargebacks. I think you did a good enough job with them, but it could happen. Just don't get too high yet, right? Don't get too high. Let's go out there. Let's stay consistent with our activity. Let's put another $3,400 on the books and we won't care. You see, the people that are writing 1 to 2 policies a week, it's really easy to get down here because you got 1 to 2 chargebacks a week. Now you're struggling. When you're writing 5 to 10 policies a week consistently, you don't have time to think back on that one that fell off the books. Yeah, it'd be nice to get back in front of them to make a quick call and get it back on the books, but you're not down here in the dumps because that's the only source of income you had, right? So when you're talking mindset, that's the first piece of this, is be ready to take a punch. When it comes to ups and downs, just don't get too high. Don't get too low. Just try to stay even keel, right? You just never know what can happen. All right, let's talk about, a little further. So when you're getting started in this business, the mindset that I would take is this. I say this all the time. Try, fail, and adjust, okay? So when you're first getting started with us, there's going to be a lot of this. Heck, I do this every day still. I try, I fail, I adjust. I try different things. They don't work, I adjust, right? Where you get lost at with mindset is when you try, you fail, and you stop. When you try, you fail, and you stop, that's a danger zone. You've got to adjust, right? That's like, we're creatures of adjustment. Like, that's how we adjust so quickly. So when you're out there trying and failing, make adjustments. How do you make adjustments? Well, learn from your mistakes. Learn from calls like this of people who have been there and made the mistakes. You guys are following one of the best people that I know, Stephen Davies. I can promise you, he's tried and failed a lot. He's failed a lot more than you. Anytime you hear about people that are successful in any industry, in any business, and any big time speaker, they all talk about how many failures they've had. How many times that they failed, and they've always, the more successful they are, the more times they failed. Andy Albright, he's successful because he failed more than all of us. Stephen Davies, he's successful more than us because he's tried to he's failed more than us. But here's the key: they made adjustments to those failures, right? So when you're just getting started with us, how do I adjust? Well, one, it's a big piece on communication. Are you communicating with your direct upline? Are you communicating with your mentor in this business of things that you're doing wrong? I point to Jeff Schultz a lot because he did a lot of these things great. I swear to you, Jeff and me talked 8 to 10 times a day when he was first getting started on different things. It might be in the house while I'm helping him. It might be after the appointment to figure out what he could have done better, right? It could be anything. Hey, I want to know a little bit more about this product. They weren't long calls, 10 to 15 minutes, right? Maybe less. Hey, man, I just had a quick question about this. This is what the person said. Okay, that makes sense. I'll try that next time. He was making adjustments. Here's what Davies teaches you to do. Davies said, keep a journal, okay? And this applies to both sides of the business, whether you're recruiting or whether you're selling, okay? You need to keep a journal of what's going on. Right. A lot of people think mental notes are good enough, or then they're not. They're just not. You need to keep you won't remember the specific details of stuff. Like, I write down everything. If I showed you guys my notes from the Davies training in Asheville, a lot of you guys would ask me for them, and I would say no, because you should have been there. But for the right price, I might give it to you. So, but Davies says you should keep a journal. You should keep a journal of your sales appointments, right? Your sales appointments. And so what does that look like? And I would argue your recruiting appointments, you should keep track of. hey man, here's what they said to me. Here's why they didn't want to go with us as a company. Here's what they were looking for. I didn't know if we offered that. I can train you up on that real quick. If you're in the sales field, I can train you up on that real quick, right? I can tell you, okay, like I was just sitting here talking with my recruiter, Kevin, and he was asking me before this call, he was like, hey, so I went out last weekend, struck out. Well, let's talk about it, right? And I got to keep in a journal. And so he pulls it out and he goes, well, this lady's, these 4 had policies, this one, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, let me ask you something. Did you do any policy reviews? He goes, sort of. I go, no, what did you do? And he tells me, I'm like, no, that's not a policy review. You listened to her. She told you she had a policy. That's your policy review? No, that's not. So I can help coach, right? But if he didn't have this written down, you think he would recall? This was before Thanksgiving. He didn't do anything this weekend. He did it last weekend. So do you think he would recall exactly what happened in those appointments without a journal? Absolutely not. He wouldn't. He wouldn't remember fine little details about the lady. Well, the wife was in charge of the payments, and this guy wouldn't get her on the phone. And then I pulled out the paper and blah, 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 right? I mean, minor details add up when you're trying to help coach somebody. So these things are very important. So when you're keeping that journal, go over these things, right? Because this all goes back to the mindset of I'm failing, Brandon. I'm looking for adjustments. I'm showing you with this journal, I'm looking for help. I'm looking for adjustments. And I can promise you, if you have somebody that you're working with, that is seeing you trying and seeing you failing, they are so much happier to help you make adjustments. Because you know why? You just showed that you're coachable, you're teachable. That's the easiest people to help fix their problems, to help adjust. If you're not, I'm sorry, you're just, like if you're not coachable, if you're not teachable, you don't deserve the time of the person. You don't. I don't care how big your ego is. I don't care. Like it doesn't matter to me. I'm not gonna sit there and try to change somebody that's not willing to change, that has their own ways of doing things. That's just not how I do business. If you can figure it out, great. I'll still support you. I'll still love on you. I'll still shout you out for this, but I'm not spending my one-on-one time trying to help somebody that doesn't want to be helped. So try, fail, adjust. All right, 2 more pieces of this and then I'll wrap it up. So, which one do I want to do first? All right, I'll say this one, because I know this one's kind of cliche, but your why matters, okay? You've got to find a bigger reason than yourself to be doing this business, okay? So, like, if you ask me, what is my why? Like, why? I feel like absolute crap today. Why did I get up and do this and get to work today? Because I have a why that's bigger than me feeling like crap. I have a commitment to Stephen Davies to be on his call at 1:00. Right? Because I have that why. If I didn't have that why, if it didn't matter to me, I would have texted Davies and said, hey man, I'm not feeling well. I ain't gonna be able to do your call. Or, hey, I know we had 4 scheduled Zooms today with new agents, but I'm just not gonna be able to do them. I just don't feel good. I got a bigger reason than me, right? So it's worth it to go through this. It's worth it to not feel so great today, but still be hopefully making an impact. My why is simply this. When my dad passed away, it became my obligation to make sure my mom never had to work again. Now, he left her in a pretty good spot, but when it comes to healthcare and stuff like that, I wanted her to be able to retire. I didn't want her to have to worry about selling the house. I didn't want her to worry about any of that. I got another why recently when I married my wife. I was brought into this, and I know a lot of people, that they'll think what they want about my situation. But the reality is I don't want to live on Andy's coattails. I want to build out my own thing. And so that is a hell of a why for me. It pushes me to no end to be one of the best in this organization called the Alliance. I want to be right next to Davies. I want to be someone who makes an impact on people, not just because of who I am or who I married, but because of what I know and what I can do. And so that's a hell of a push. And now, more recently, me and Haley just bought a new house in North Carolina, and it is freaking awesome. And so I never want to have to look at her and say, hey, Haley, we got in over our heads. We can't afford this. Because it is an absolute increase in my monthly budget. And I'm okay with that. You know why? Because I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep pushing. I've got now a new why. So like, if that why for me is externally, but if that why needs to be internally, figure out a reason why you need to do this for yourself. Maybe you failed at other businesses. Why should it be for you this time? Why should it work for you this time? Find something that drives you. Okay. I promise you this will help out so much. Like my mom and Haley, if I didn't have a reason, like the money stops mattering as much, but my commitments matter even more, if that makes any sense. Like the money's going to come with my commitments. Me getting on these 4 Zooms today, me jumping on this team call today, that's going to make an impact in my business. But my why is why I'm doing it. So find a why, push yourself, that mindset. Okay. And lastly, if you were coming into this business looking at it as a plan B, you might as well go ahead and quit. Okay. Don't look at this as plan B. Okay. Come looking at this as the only plan. If you get started with us and you're like, hey, if this doesn't work out, I've got another option there. That is weak, very weak mindset. You know, I don't think any, let's talk about 2 different fields of work. Navy SEALs. Let's start with them. Do you think a Navy SEAL gets started in training and they're like, you know, if I don't make this, I'm just going to do that? No. I promise you, if you know anything about Navy SEALs, if you studied them at all, their mindset, it's not the most skillful person. It's not the strongest person. It's the person with the strongest mindset who makes it to become a Navy SEAL. Absolutely. Because here's the thing, they don't look at it with a plan B, because plan B is for losers. Plan B is looking at things like, oh, if this doesn't work out, I got a backup plan. No, they don't see it as another option. This is the only option. I'm going to do whatever it is to figure this out. Right? Professional athletes. Let's talk about them for a second. And do you think professional athletes put all that time in at the gym and training, not when they have another plan in place? Like Sean Boone. Sean Boone's in my organization. He was dead set on making it to the NFL. He did the training. He played at NC State. I mean, dude, this guy trained around the clock. Reality is he's probably too small for the NFL. He's about my height. I think I could take him down. Hopefully he ain't watching this. But the reality is he's probably too small to make it professionally. But he had that mindset of no other option. So when it came to this business, when we started out this business together, it was 100% his plan B. He was making it back to the league. And so Boone never really did anything with the business until he shifted his mind and said, you know what? I'm going to put the professional athlete thing aside. I'm going all in on this. And now you see Boone climbing the ranks, right? Joker did 32,000 last month issue paid business. He also hit district manager last month. We're traveling together this week. His only focus is this. When we first started his first year, he wouldn't want to even talk to me because he knows he didn't want to tell me what he was doing. Right. It's just that mindset. Don't come into this business looking at it as a plan B. I can always do this on the side, come into it with that mentality of it's this or nothing else. Right. Because if you don't, you inevitably fail in this business. You'll always think that you have a backup plan. If you feel like you don't have a backup plan, you'll get your back up against the wall during the rough times and you'll fight back. You won't just cower and give in. So look, guys, that's 4 of the things. I know I could talk for days on this. Let me stop sharing my screen. I don't know how to do that. I'll figure it out later. Stop share. Okay. So hopefully that helps. But look, I know there's many different things that we can go over of reasons that people fail. But if you ask me, these are the 4 things that cause somebody to fail or succeed in this business, right? I think mindset's one of the most important under there. But when you talk about the technicalities, the investments, the activity, the schedule, there's no way of getting around that. Okay. So, look, I hope this helped. I did go longer than intended. So Davies, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Chandler and Adam, for putting this together and allowing me to speak to your team. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their week and leading into NatCon. If you haven't already gotten your NatCon tickets, please do yourself a favor, invest in yourself, get a NatCon ticket, be there. There'll be a lot of great people speaking, a lot of good association. Get around the team. I can't stress that enough. If you ask these top producers, what is it that helped your business? I'd say 9 out of 10 of them talk about some event they went to, maybe 10 out of 10. So get your event tickets. It was great to be on this call. I hope you guys got something from it. Pleasure speaking with y'all. Talk to you later.